my name's Pluto. Welcome to my channel. Today I'll be talking about my depth year and how that's been going so far. When I first heard about the depth year, I was like, that's definitely not for me. And so, January rolled around and a lot of people talked about their depth year experience and how they were planning this thing and they were really excited about their journey. And I was just like, yeah, no thanks. And then, I started to watch more of the videos. I thought more about it and I made the decision to do it. I realized that I had an insane amount of books and audio courses and all kinds of things that I have not paid enough attention to, and I just kept buying a new book, new course, new ebook, new this, new that, and it was just too much. What's the sense in buying all of this new learning material if you haven't even read over half of what you already have? Finally, in March of 2019, so just a couple months ago, I decided I was going to do a depth year. I set up my own parameters, so I decided that I would not buy any new books. The only exception, I'm not a purist, being that every month Audible publishes the Audible originals. If you're a member, you get 2 free Audible originals per month. So I decided at the beginning that I would still go ahead and purchase, because they're included with my membership, the 2 originals, because otherwise I would essentially it would be like I was losing money, right? Because I've already paid for these, it would be silly for me not to get them. However, the rule that I made is that I can't read any of the new 2019 Audible originals until I've already finished all of the many books that are waiting to be read in my Audible library. I also decided that I would not buy any new tarot decks. As a tarot reader, I love new decks. It's so exciting. And, there's something to be said for getting to know the decks you have really well. There's always more to explore. And I don't know how many decks exactly, but I want to say it's somewhere around 20. So it's more than enough to spend my time with. I also committed to not signing up for any new ongoing courses. I decided that I would still be able to sign up for day-long retreats or workshops that were something really time contained. But as far as signing up for a college class or another yoga teacher training or something that was going to require a lot of ongoing study and time commitment, I decided to wait for the rest of the year on that. I didn't include other things like clothing or home goods because I felt like my issue of compulsive buying was specifically around learning materials. Once I outlined all my expectations, I kind of came up with this vision in my head of what it would be like. It was like this fantasy where I would just sit around all day reading all the books I have, and I would finish all the video courses and online courses, and I would be so studious, and I would, finish this depth year being incredibly learned and, have just, blown away with all this new knowledge and information. It really was a noble vision of what the depth year can be, and I think there was definitely a hope that by eliminating the buying of new learning materials, that I could really focus on what it is they already have and devote time to going through those materials and giving them the attention they deserve. I also worried that I would have a hard time resisting buying new things. I know that impulse, when you see the flashy new thing and you just want it and you can imagine holding it in your hand, it can be really hard to say, no, I'm gonna wait, or no, I'm just not gonna buy that. I found that for me, I do keep a list of items that I see during my current depth year and then hope to purchase at a later date. So that way, if I see something really wonderful, I don't have to miss out on it. I just am kind of delaying that gratification for later. Sometimes for decks, actually waiting to buy a tarot deck until after you've had the chance to really think about it, sometimes you realize, I actually am not as interested in this deck as I thought, or sometimes you think, no, this deck is amazing, I definitely want one. So sometimes waiting on a big purchase or even a small purchase isn't the worst thing ever. The other important factor is that in March of 2019, I traveled across the country, was all around, went to New York, visited family, and then finally settled in Massachusetts. Any reasonable person would know that moving across country probably is gonna suck up a lot of your time and energy. And I think that I'd had a really romantic vision of the depth year and all of the stuff I'd be able to get done. And then the move happened. I'd actually brought a number of learning materials with me, like physical copies, and then I have the digital copies at hand always. I was in my temporary place, sort of surrounded by these learning materials, and I was like, I have no energy right now to do anything, to even read a newspaper article, let alone study the Yoga Sutras or, a new language. Like, no, I need to rest. We forget that learning actually takes a cognitive toll on the brain, right? There's positive aspects where it can help us to create new neural pathways and stimulate activity in our neurons, and also it takes energy. In 2017, as you may have heard, I had a brain injury, and since that time, I've had to really adjust my approach to learning. Before, I could consume large amounts of information very quickly over long periods of time. I could study for 12 hours and be okay. Since the brain injury, I had to take things a little slower, and that's been a really hard thing to accept. If I had a really tough day at work and maybe I didn't sleep very well, it's not realistic to expect myself to come home and read dense books about political theory. I'm already spent. I don't have any energy left to give. A lot of my recovery process has been lowering my expectations and changing how I approach life. Really everything. I mean, it may sound silly, but I've had to shift how I do a lot of things. About a month or two into the depth year, I realized I was going to have to adjust my expectations. I acknowledged that I was going to need to leave space for my body to catch up with all the moving. I also have to accept that I may not have the same capacity to learn nonstop, and I need to give my brain a rest every day. Doing this depth year has really highlighted the insanity of my expectations of myself. Throughout my life, I've always had this drive to be excellent, to be multi-talented, to be accomplished. And that can be a really great thing, and it has a dark side. When I was working as a summer camp counselor, there was a girl named Shara who told me that she had a list of things that she wanted to learn how to do or accomplish. She compared it to when girls would go to finishing school and they would learn all these great skills and talents to be polished, well-rounded human beings. And she, knew how to do an insane amount of stuff. Like she could do calligraphy and she spoke languages and she knew how to ballroom dance. It was really cool. I also have always looked up to fictional characters like Sydney Bristow on Alias, the Arrow on Arrow, these characters that were normal humans who had dedicated a lot of time to learning new skills and were essentially human Swiss Army knives and could fight and dance and speak languages and do all these crazy things. And I have always had this desire to be one of those people. The funny part is that I think people who know me well would be like, you already are one of those people. And, sure, I don't quite hold up to Sydney Bristow or the Arrow, but I have done a lot of things. I've traveled the world, I've played musical instruments, I've studied dance, I've studied martial arts, I've played roller derby, I have a master's degree in social work. I do so many things and I have a lot of skills. And so I think it's easy in our minds to put ourselves down and say, you're not doing enough, you haven't learned enough, you're not, polished enough or well-rounded enough. But stop, and take a moment to acknowledge what you've already accomplished, because it's probably more than you're giving yourself credit for. What it really comes down to is that I have a fear, an insecurity of being seen as incompetent or not intelligent. I think that's an insecurity a lot of people have, and it's understandable, right? We see characters in media, in books, in movies, on TV who are extraordinary and who, we don't see them in the real life in the day-to-day. We see them in this, edited cinematic kind of way where the less exciting bits of real life are just glossed over. That's the thing is that, even someone who is a super spy, quote unquote, in the real world, no one is Sydney Bristow from Alias because she's not real. She couldn't be real. No human being knows how to do that many things that well all the time without having to rest or have mental breakdowns. It's not realistic whatsoever. Humans are incredible and we can do a lot of stuff, but we're not these bionic super people. We need to take time for ourselves to be okay. A lot of my goals with the depth year had less to do with the pure joy of learning and more to do with wanting to be seen in a certain way by other people. That's the beauty of these kinds of experiences like a depth year or a silent meditation retreat. We learn why it is that we're doing things, that we have these compulsive patterns or, just ruts that we've worn in, like, oh, we've always done it this way, and we may not know why. But if we stop to observe what it is that's going on, we can get a lot of valuable information for ourselves that will help us grow. My depth year has been a lot about confronting my insecurities and accepting that I need time to rest. And the learning will still be there. And if I get to it, I get to it. And if I don't, that doesn't make me a bad person or a dumb person or a lazy person. It means that I'm a responsible adult who makes space for my own needs. I am still excited once this move settles down to delve more into some of these learning topics that I have because they're super cool. And I also know that I need to give time. This move has been hugely tumultuous and it's in many ways not over yet. And so I've got to be patient. If you're doing a depth year, I'd love to hear about your experiences. If you have questions or comments about the depth year, feel free to leave a line below. As always, thanks for listening and don't forget to like and subscribe. See you next time.